Is there anyone that finds it odd? Well, can we start here? I'm gonna start with the entire panel. Are the Proud Boys a white supremacist organization, yes or no? Starting with Ms. Wiley.
It is my view they are.
It depends on how you define it. I have a book.
Okay, never mind.
It depends on how you
define it.
define
It's a yes
it.
or no. Proud Boys, how they define themselves. Are they white supremacists, yes or no?
I have not read a description of how they define themselves.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not on their mailing list, I don't know.
So are you only on the mailing list of?
I'm not like the
supremacists,
SPLC, I don't
or-
fund organizations that I'm in.
Oh, it just seemed like you were saying because you haven't received their mail, you only received the mail of white supremacists. But go ahead, last witness.
No, they're not white supremacists.
And you know what? I do believe that y'all believe that. Let's try another one. Neo-Nazis, Miss Wiley.
Well, yes.
Nazis is in their name. Neo-Nazis, Dr. Swain.
Is the question still about the Proud Boys, or is it about the
Neo-Nazis.
Neo-Nazi-
We have moved on. Neo-Nazis.
Neo-Nazis are hate groups, and I have a book, 2002,
Okay, thank you so much.
about
So we're
hate
gonna-
groups
so-
that I suggest that you all read.
I'm reclaiming
It's a
my
long
time.
book.
I'm reclaiming my time. Neo-Nazis. Are they white supremacists?
Neo-Nazis, are they white supremacists?
Yes or no?
What's that?
Yes or no?
They're certainly anti-Semitic, which I would join with any member of the Democratic Party. Mr. Nadler earlier was talking about standing up for
Okay,
the Jewish
reclaiming
people.
my time.
I'd be happy
Next.
to do that.
Yes, they're white supremacists.
Woo, thank God. Jesus Christ, I didn't think we were going to get there. Oh my gosh, let me be clear. Proud Boys are freaking white supremacists. Neo-Nazis are too. And this president, who loves to coddle white supremacists, has decided that they should be given checks. The reasons that I pointed to those particular organizations is because you can go and read, I don't know how many articles, as Dr. Swain wants people to read up. I'm going to be clear. I've read my fair share of books. I do have my fair share of degrees. It is clear that neo-Nazis as well as Proud Boys joined in on January 6th. Yet this slush fund that they keep talking about is specifically to give them money. So how dare this majority sit here and try to lecture this organization about money? Now, we're not talking about tax-paying dollars as we are in that slush fund. But you're telling me that $2 billion in the same country that I'm sure some of y'all would struggle with whether or not the enslavement of black people was good or bad. I'm not even gonna go there and ask y'all the question because y'all struggle with defining that these people were white supremacists. But this country still hasn't thought that reparations made sense for black folk in this country. But at the same time, they've decided that people that are in organizations that are absolutely white supremacy organizations should get our tax dollars because they decided to tear apart or attempt to tear apart our democracy. They are being rewarded. These are people that went through our criminal justice system. When people on that side of the aisle claim that they love law and order, they went through it. They either entered pleas of guilty or they were found guilty. And this president, on day one, his priority was not around racism. It was around doing things like letting them go and now putting money in their pockets. We haven't had one hearing on white supremacy. Yet when we look at things like the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the 9 worshipers who were murdered at the Mother Emanuel AME Church, the 23 people murdered in 2019 during the shooting at Walmart in El Paso, the 10 people murdered during the 2022 shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. All of these were murdered by white supremacists who are empowered by the Republican Party's racist rhetoric and policies. This is the same party that wants to drag us back to the Jim Crow era. Some say that there aren't poll taxes, and I guess it's because they're not listing the amount of money. But when you tell somebody that they've got to go and pay for something, say, like a passport that costs over $100 in order to be able to vote, that looks like a poll tax to me. Some of y'all need to read up on your history books, the very same ones that the Republicans have decided that people should not hear about because you don't want real history taught in our schools because you're afraid that it's going to hurt people's feelings to know that their ancestors were so savage that they would enslave black folk. You don't want them to understand why the 14th Amendment mattered then and it matters today. You don't want them to understand that when they draw these racist lines and tell black folk that they shouldn't have representation in this country, that it is against the Constitution. You want them to be ignorant so that they can sit up here and be your token for your mission.
Expired.
This hearing did not begin with policy nuance or procedural caution. It began with visible frustration. Representative Jasmine Crockett made that clear immediately when she said she had avoided sitting through much of the hearing because her facial expressions would have revealed exactly what she was thinking. That opening mattered because it signaled that what followed would not be a detached legal discussion. It would be a confrontation over moral clarity, political rhetoric, and what Crockett viewed as a refusal by some witnesses and Republicans to plainly identify extremist ideologies. She began with a direct question. Are the Proud Boys a white supremacist organization? What followed was not a clean answer. Some witnesses hesitated. Others attempted to qualify their responses. One referenced definitions. Another said they were not familiar with how the group defined itself. For Crockett, that hesitation itself became the issue. The exchange quickly turned into something larger than the Proud Boys specifically. It became an argument about whether public officials and political allies were willing to clearly condemn extremist movements without qualification. Crockett then pivoted to neo-Nazis. Again, she pushed repeatedly for a simple yes or no answer on whether neo-Nazis are white supremacists. When answers became indirect or delayed, her frustration became increasingly visible. One of the defining moments of the exchange came after finally receiving a direct acknowledgement. Crockett reacted with visible disbelief and relief, saying, "Thank God. I didn't think we were going to get there." That moment captured the core of her argument. In Crockett's view, the inability or unwillingness to immediately condemn extremist ideologies reflects a broader political problem, not merely a semantic disagreement. She then escalated the discussion dramatically by connecting these organizations to the January 6 Capitol attack and criticizing what she described as financial or political support for individuals associated with those events. This is where the hearing shifted from debate over terminology into a broader indictment of Republican priorities and rhetoric. Crockett argued that people convicted or charged in connection with January 6 had already gone through the criminal justice system and that efforts to support or defend them contradicted repeated Republican messaging about law and order. That accusation reflected one of the deepest political divides in modern American politics. Whether January 6 should primarily be viewed as a criminal assault on democratic institutions, a protest that spiraled out of control, or something in between. Crockett clearly positioned herself at the most forceful end of that spectrum. But the hearing did not stop there. She widened the conversation beyond January 6 and tied white supremacist violence to multiple high-profile tragedies, including the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, the killing of George Floyd, the death of Breonna Taylor, the massacre at Mother Emanuel AME Church, the 2019 El Paso Walmart shooting, and the 2022 Buffalo supermarket shooting. Her broader argument appeared to be that white supremacist ideology is not a fringe abstraction but a recurring source of real-world violence that deserves sustained congressional attention. She then moved into an even larger historical and political critique involving voting rights, race, reparations, education policy, and the legacy of segregation. That section revealed something important about the structure of modern congressional hearings. Hearings often begin around a narrow topic, but lawmakers frequently use their limited speaking time to connect that topic to broader ideological narratives. Crockett used this hearing not only to discuss extremist groups, but to frame them within a wider historical argument about systemic racism, political power, and historical memory in the United States. Her comments about history education were especially significant. Crockett argued that efforts to limit or reshape discussions about race and American history in schools are connected to a broader attempt to avoid confronting difficult parts of the nation's past. Supporters of those educational restrictions often argue they are trying to prevent politically divisive or ideologically driven curricula. Critics, including Crockett, argue those efforts sanitize history and obscure the realities of racism and discrimination. That conflict has become one of the defining cultural and political battles in the United States. What made this hearing notable was not simply the intensity of Crockett's rhetoric. Congressional hearings often contain sharp partisan language. What stood out was how openly she connected present-day political disputes to long historical patterns involving race, representation, and democratic participation. To supporters, her comments likely sounded like overdue bluntness about extremism and racial politics. To critics, the remarks may have sounded overly sweeping or politically inflammatory. But either way, the exchange reflected something unmistakable about the current political climate. Many lawmakers no longer view these debates as abstract policy disagreements. They view them as fundamental moral conflicts over the identity and direction of the country itself. And that is why moments like this resonate far beyond a committee hearing room. Because beneath the interruptions, partisan clashes, and viral soundbites was a deeper unresolved question. Can modern American politics still separate disagreement from existential moral accusation, or has that line already disappeared? What do you think? Should lawmakers use hearings to directly confront extremist rhetoric and historical issues more aggressively, or does that risk pushing political divisions even further apart? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you value long-form congressional breakdowns that go beyond headlines and unpack the political, historical, and institutional forces behind these viral moments, subscribe to Capitol Oversight for more in-depth oversight analysis and hearing coverage.